Welcome to the lecture of MVC. MVC stands for Model View Controller. In our lecture, we will try to cover these topics like what is MVC, how does it work, and why learning MVC is necessary. So, what is MVC? MVC is a software design pattern or software architecture pattern or software development methodology. The main intention of MVC is proper use of code and making logical code and interface code separated. Uh, it divides an application or software into three parts: model, view, and controller.
Model can be simply defined as the component where the data lives. It might be simple file like an Excel file or an XML file, or it might be database with many kinds of records. The model component corresponds to all the data related logic that the user work with. So the model component basically has three main jobs. First of all, interacts with the database, gets and sends data, runs data logic.
View. View is a user interface. It is responsible for showing end user content. It means presentation of data is a particular format triggered by a controller's decision to present the data. That means view is nothing but where the user sees and what the controller turns to the user. The controller simply forwards the user to the correct view based on what they are trying to do. But after they have received the data from the model and forward this information to the view. The view then displays the information it's given in the format it's structured with.
Hello guys, I'm going to discuss about the controller part of the MVC. Earlier we have known that MVC stands for Model View Controller. So the controller, what is controller? Actually the controller can be considered the middleman of the application. It works with the user taking in data and then working with the model to get the appropriate data or calculation, and then working with the view to show the response to the user. What we are going to discuss. Actually, it gets request from view sends to model and gets response from model sends to view. Other things that we can mention are it receives data from the view via user input, caches data just like any other type of web application. In the case of PHP and form, the data would be held likely in post or get variables. It's the controller's job to determine which action needs to be taken and uses the right model to do so. After creating a model object, it will process a function and catch what's returned. Then the controller will load the right view based on what the user is trying to do and send along the information is just received. After it gets whatever information it needs from the model, it will determine what view to send that feedback to and send the user there.
As per above figure, when a user enters in URL in the browser, it goes to the server and call appropriate controller. Then the controller uses the appropriate view and model to create response and send it back to the user. In this figure, it's showed out. We will see the details in our next session.
A typical first step in an MVC transaction is that a user supplies inputs to the controller by the way of the view. In the next step, the controller has to figure out what to do with the inputs. For example, if the user wants to log in into a system, the controller will find out if the username and password is in the model's data. If it is correct, it will proceed. If it doesn't, it will show an error message. In the next step, the controller will send the data to the view where the user will get the desired page in response.
Now we are going to look at some of the advantages of using MVC. Using MVC structure provides two main advantages. Number 1. Faster and simultaneous development. MVC supports rapid and parallel development because MVC decouples the various components of an application. Developers are able to work on parallel components without impacting or blocking one another. The application developed using MVC model can be completed 3 times faster than those developed using other development patterns. Number 2. Reusability of code. By creating components that are independent of each other, developers are able to reuse components quickly and easily. Some of the other advantages are ability to provide multiple views, support for asynchronous technique, modification does not affect the entire model, high cohesion, low coupling, MVC model returns data without formatting, SEO-friendly development pattern.
Some popular programming languages implement MVC in their framework, like in PHP, Laravel, CakePHP, CodeIgniter, Vue, Zend, Symfony, etc. implement MVC in their framework. And in Java, Spring, JSF, etc. implement MVC in their framework. C Sharp, ASP.NET, Ruby, etc. also uses MVC in their frameworks. It also forms a major backbone in Objective-C, which is the primary language for Apple iOS. Thanks for watching our video.